So this Agency for International Development, what they do is they go into countries, they fund media, they try to control the narrative from within the mainstream media. They fund what's known as NGOs to help with their efforts in different countries. Now, I'm going to say something here. Just a few years ago in an expose, we exposed that how the CIA were working in Northern Ireland from as far back as what we can see is 1985. How that through a CIA slush fund, what was known as Atlantic philanthropies were seeking out and funding people, and this is their words, funding people with the right narrative. So USAID is just another string to that bow. What USAID have been funding in places like Afghanistan is trans rights and different things that some people would see as what we know as woke agenda. So why are the USAID funding the BBC? An old saying from Northern Ireland in the past is that he who pays the piper gets to call the tune. Now, I wonder who is controlling the BBC, and I wonder who is actually creating the narrative for the BBC when it comes to the mass, uncontrolled, uncontrollable, unquantifiable and unidentifiable immigration, which is affecting all communities across the United Kingdom and all countries across the EU, the Western world, and in America itself. People are seeing what's happening in their countries. People are seeing that there's these, what's known as NGOs, and what happens in America, well, it seems to reach our shores swiftly, very, very quickly. One example of that is whenever the Black Lives Matter campaign started in 2020 at times of COVID, and how that it is that it swept the Western world, and how that it is that there are players in everybody's countries who took up that gauntlet and championed exactly what was happening in America. And I'm going to say that we have enough problems of our own, and the last thing that we want to do is to create race riots in our own country, but yet there are political parties here in Northern Ireland, namely Sinn Féin, the Alliance Party, the SDLP, People Before Profit, and in certain cases the Ulster Unionist Party here in Northern Ireland, who would be all on the narrative and the agenda that's coming down the line from these non-governmental organisations and which is being funded by the US Agency for International Development. Now that's very, very important to understand that this isn't some humanitarian organisation which is funding aid and needs and poverty in countries. This is an organisation which pushes out an agenda, which purchases people, which funds people to literally to create what it is that the Americans want to push into place in everyone's country. Now, when I say Americans, I don't mean the people of America who are largely against this. I don't mean certain administrations within America. I mean specifically the Democrats, the Bill Clintons of this world, the Obamas of this world, the Joe Bidens of this world, who are involved in a strategy across the Western world of making the Western world and pushing out into other countries, trying to make the world in their image. Now, if we look at America, the land of the free, you can be what you want to be. Well, sometimes being what you want to be in some people's minds is completely and utterly off the Richter scale bonkers. And I mean that with a passion. I mean, to teach children in schools and to try to develop through schools that, children they can call themselves a woman if they're a man and vice versa. Let children be children. Leave the children alone. It is sick to push your politics down children's throats through schools, and yet that's what's happening through the funding of USAID. So the funding through USAID, 8% in 223, 224 to the BBC, comes with strings attached. It comes with that the BBC have to push a particular narrative, and of local people's concerns, of local people crying out for help for what it is happening in their own community, of local people crying out for their communities to remain with a sense of stability as in the way that they grew up. Well, if those concerns are run contrary to the agenda being pushed out by USAID and their multitude of paid lackeys, well then, the people that would be having concerns with reference to what's happening, they would be fair game for the mainstream media to come after them, to attack them, and to try to paint them as something they're not, to try to paint them as far-right, fascist, racist, and all manner of horrible language directed towards ordinary people with concerns. So that's what's happening, and that's why it is happening. It's because of funding. Something that was happening from within the Labour Party, Tony Blair's establishment, from way back in the early 90s. Now, he called it a Marxist strategy, and this strategy is called comprador and comprador class. Now, what does that mean? The comprador is a Portuguese word, and comprador means simply purchaser. Now, that means it could be purchasers of anything, purchaser of people in this case. If anyone goes to attack those that are pushing the agenda by globalisation and globalists, well, if anybody goes to attack them, well, they are rounded on, and they are set upon, and they are victimised and called everything under the sun. When we look at Northern Ireland, we see that both Sinn Féin and the DUP have become comprador in our countries. And what they do is that to get funding in Northern Ireland, you have to go through some of these groupings, the executive office, and if you're a good boy, if you're not speaking out against the DUP, if you're not speaking out against Sinn Féin, well, you'll get your funding, and well, everybody seems to be happy. But what if that funding is causing the destruction of what it is that you claim to represent, what it is that you claim to hold so dear? What if that funding that you're taking is like 30 pieces of silver, and it is creating the destruction from within your own country? So what does this funding require? It requires you to turn a blind eye to what's happening in the communities. It requires you to push a globalist narrative. It requires you to really accept, to promote, and to use these NGOs who have been set up with fluffy names. And these institutions that have been set up, well, they're completely the opposite of what it is that they suggest that they are. USAID, Agency for International Development, well, it sounds as if it, as I said earlier, it's funding poverty and hardship in countries, but it's not. What it's doing, it's creating poverty and hardship in countries, but only for some. If you believe in the globalist narrative, if you champion the globalist narrative, if you want to protest against those who would seek to protect and ensure that their countries remain the same, well, you will be funded to do so. And we see that through the free plasticine mob that occupies all our towns and cities throughout the UK. Black Lives Matter is another example of how that an American-driven global agenda is pushed across the globe, and how that it is that the usual actors in respective countries, how that it is that they come out and they champion what it is that's coming from the Democrats and those seeking globalisation from within America. So there's what's happening from within our countries. There's why the BBC, according to what it is that you see, to what it is that you actually hear, when you don't perceive this is clearly happening. And, you know, that's why the BBC have a bias, have a slant, because he who pays the piper, he who pays the BBC, are actually dictating the tune to which the BBC plays.